Hey, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Lunch and Learn sponsored by the Do Space. My name is Julie, and I'll be your facilitator this afternoon. Do have the chat open over here on another monitor, but if you have a question, feel free to put something in the chat or turn your microphone on. Either option is just fine with me. So for today's Lunch and Learn, we're going to be looking at organizing and analyzing data with Excel. Throughout my many years of training in Microsoft Excel, the one thing that I have recognized is that people either set up their data in a manner where they cannot use some of the more sophisticated functions of Microsoft Excel, or they have inherited, which happens more often than not, they have inherited a spreadsheet that has been through multiple people, and it's just not organized in a manner that you can utilize some of these, like I said, some of these other functions, some of the higher end functions of Microsoft Excel. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to take a look at that today. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up. There you are. So this is just something that I generated very quickly, looking at some of the various data. So across the top, we have customer name, different fields. We have customer name, order date, the region, the product, the quantity, the unit price, and the total. Okay. Now you'll note that every field is assigned a specific item. All right. So you want to make sure that you're not combining things like um, multiple order dates. Okay. If Jerry Jones, the first person's on there, if Jerry Jones has more than one order, let's say that they ordered something on looks like March 30th, on March 30th, and then they ordered something again on April 19th. You don't want to put those in the same order date. You want a separate line item for that order date. Along those same lines, you don't want to combine the products. If they order a monitor and a tablet and then a phone, you want a separate line item for each one of those. So many times I see people trying to combine that data, keeping it all in one place, and it just does not allow you to analyze your data in a manner in which you're going to want to. And so many times I have to tell people you're going to be much better off if you just start over. And of course, that's not what you want to hear. But the other way, it's kind of like trying to write a report about a book that you didn't read, or trying to put a square into a circle. It just doesn't work very well. So, update yourself on Microsoft Excel. Start from scratch. You can work off of both. If you're in that situation, you can always work off of both, but continue to update a newer version so that it's you own it. And you put it together. It's also very hard when you inherit somebody else's work or somebody shares work with you, to understand maybe what the data represents, because they work for a specific company, or it's their, a club that they belong to, an organization. So sometimes it's hard, and I know a lot of times people will send me something and say, why can't I do this? It's like, wait a second, you need to explain to me, what all of this data is here. So putting it in a manner like this makes it very easy to decipher what this is. I've got my customer name, I have the order date, I have the region that the customer lives in, the product, the quantity, the unit price, and the total. Okay, so what can we do with this data? What are we going to look at today? So I wanted to start with showing you a nice little feature that you may or may not be aware of. But let's say that you have customer name and you're saying, oh, I really need that, first name and last name in two different columns. So there's a very easy way that you can go in and you can separate out those columns. You can also combine columns if you want to. So if you have first name and last name in two columns and you want to combine them, you can do that as well. But let's take a look at separating out this data before we for our first little activity. So in order to do that, I need to make room in my worksheet. I need to make room in my worksheet for first name, last name. If I don't, the order date, the data will go in where the order date is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to right click and I'm going to insert a column so that we have a column for first name and last name. We'll just go ahead and change that. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select from A2 down to my very last line item. I believe there's about around 50 customer names here. To do that very quickly, I'm just going to hold down the Control Shift and the down arrow, and it will take me down to my last line, also highlighting that data. And that's the Control, the Shift, and the down arrow. Okay, then I'm going to move over to the data ribbon. And on the data ribbon, I am going to select the option text to columns. So on text to columns, this is a wizard. This window is going to appear, and you have two different options. You have delimited and you have fixed width. So the delimited is a character, such as the example is a comma. And I'll go ahead and show you that because that's the one we want to use right now. So we don't have a tab, we don't have a semicolon, we don't have a comma, but we do have a space. So what we're telling Excel is we want you to separate out that last name. So as soon as you see that space, move what's after that space into column B. Okay, so I'm going to take the check mark out of tab and I'm going to put the check mark in space. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And it gives me a data preview. So if you look, I'll kind of circle my mouse around it here. It has the first name and the last name. Now, it also has a destination. Where do you want this information? And we're going to start in A2. I could select, I could go over here and select M or N, whatever you want. So you can choose where this data is being placed, but I want it to stay in A and B. So we're just going to leave that. And I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. And there it is. So you can separate that out very easily. That's just your first name and your last name. Okay, just making sure there's no questions. Now, within the home ribbon, I'm going to move back over to the home ribbon. You underneath the editing group, you have the ability to sort and filter. All right. So if we want everything, let's just say that we want all of our last names, that we want those to be in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to select column B, and then I'm going to come over here to sort and filter, and I'm just going to tell it that I want it from A to Z. And what it's going to ask me is, do you want it to expand the selection? When you're sorting, yes, absolutely, you want it to expand that selection, because if you don't, then the only data that's going to move is in column B, but we need columns A and C through H to move with that data. So make sure that you tell it that you want to expand the selection and click on sort. Continue with the current selection. I can't remember the last time I even selected that option. So it just doesn't happen very often. So when I clicked on sort, what it does is it just gives me all of my names in alphabetical order, A all the way down to Z. If there is a Z, there's not. So we went down to W. But we can go ahead and look at that. Now, We only have 50 lines of data here, but what happens if I'm just going to select the entire worksheet? And you may have noted that I just came over here in between column A and row 1. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. Might be easier for you to see. And there's a triangle pointing down towards your worksheet. If I click on that, it will select the entire worksheet. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to look at I'm going to turn on the filters. So when I turn on the filters, it gives me this little down arrow next to each one of my fields. All right. So if you're looking at this and perhaps you want to know, how many things has Adams ordered. So I'm going to click on Adams. I'm going to click on OK. Kathleen Adams has only ordered 1 item. Many times you might receive a report that has a lot of different data in it. Let's say if we just want to look at the East region. So we can look at just the East region. I can click on OK, and it will give me just the East region. So I'm going to scroll down. Now, when I'm doing this, it's obvious, it's not deleting all the rest of our data. It's simply just showing or filtering out the East region. Now I can continue to filter. So I want everything in the East region. And I want the product, I want to know. I want to know how many tablets. So I'm just going to, I took the check mark out of select all. I put the check mark in tablet. So I'm doing the East region, and I just want to know the tablets that have been ordered in the East region. Now we're down to 2. Okay, but you can filter more than 1 column at a time if you need to. So many times I get these massive reports. They might be 5,000, 8,000 lines to them. And the first thing that I want to do is, I don't need any of the other information. I just need my information. So I go straight to the filter and I filter just for my name. That way I can copy and paste that to another worksheet, and I'm working just with my data. So the filter is a very nice, the sort is nice as well. It just kind of depends on how you're trying to drill down and look at information. Now, to turn the filter off, probably the easiest thing to do is just to come up here and tell it to clear the filter. There are a lot of different ways to clear the filter. You could shut it off. You could go to the individual columns and turn it off that way. It's whatever is easiest for you. Is the approach that you should take. So that is looking at, separating out some of the columns, looking at the sort and the filter, allowing you to look at just specific information. There's other things that you can do in here. Let's go ahead and let's come over to quantity, and we're going to look at conditional formatting. Okay, so I'm just going to select column F. That would probably be the easiest thing to do, and I'm going to go to conditional formatting. Conditional formatting has a lot of different options for you to utilize. And I use conditional formatting almost on a daily basis. And to be honest with you, some of it is just text that contains. If I'm looking at, professional development, has this been completed? Has that been completed? A yes is green, a no is red. If they're below, let's just say, let's do a greater than, less than. So if you're looking for, quantities, and I'm just going to do, whoops, there it is. So format cells that are greater than, let's just say 10, and we're going to fill those with a green fill with dark green text. Okay, now I can put any number in there that I want to. I'm just kind of glancing at the numbers that were generated. And the 10 in F3 seems to be a little bit of a higher one. So it depends on what you're looking for, but you can do greater than, you can do less than, you can do equal to. You can put as many conditional formatting rules on a column as you want to. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that I want everything above 10 to be formatted in, or maybe I should say 9, because it's giving me a live preview. There we go. All right. Now you'll notice that it included quantity, but as I scroll down, you can see that I have about what was it, four items that were 9 or above. So if I go down here to laptops and I change this to a 22, it will automatically turn green. Or if I go up here to the phone and change this to an 8, it will turn that back. Now, when I go back to my filter, I can now filter by color if I want to. So I can filter by the green, and it will show me just those. So it also filters by color if you want it to. There's just lots of little things about Excel that are very wonderful, and maybe you are not aware of those. So then we can come back down to conditional formatting, highlight cells. It will also, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear the rules. Let's go ahead, clear the rules from the entire worksheet. And let's just select the exact data. So I can go in here and I can highlight rules. Come here. That are greater than, that are less than, that are equal to, text that contains. You also have top bottom rules. So I could grab the top 10 and I don't have to look at that. I mean, I've only got 50 items here, so that might not be too hard to go through and do, but if Excel is going to do it for me, why not? And if you've got 5,000 rows of data, yes, give me my top 10 or give me my top 10%. Let's look at that one. So if I go in and I choose the top 10%, now it just defaults to 10%. You can change that to anything you want to. You can change it to 5%, 25%, whatever it is that you're looking for. So this is the top 10%. We'll just change that for the fun of it to maybe the top 25%. And turn these green and click on OK. And it will just highlight those, the top 25%, the top 25% orders. Now, if I go in and I change some of this, let's say if I change this, the keyboards to 33, when I hit the Enter key, you'll note that F2 and F3 that were highlighted, I'll put the 3 back in. Whoops, that's the wrong one. I'll put the 3 back in. So it's constantly analyzing the data as you're working with it, and it's making those changes. So it's a live preview. It is instantaneous when you are making these changes. You're still looking at the top 25%, but if I change this to, like I said, a 33, then it drops those 8s out of the top 25% because the phone of 33 took over for that. So it's still looking at all of those for you. So like the conditional formatting is really nice. It's something that you just kind of have to go in and play with. You also have data bars. Let me clear these rules. So I'm going to go ahead and clear those. Underneath conditional formatting, you also have data bars. The data bars are like putting in your own sparkline or your own little chart in that particular column. So let me go ahead and select this data before I do that. And I'm just going to come up back to conditional formatting and look at the bars. So you can do them, gradient. Let's see, what do I want? Do I want to fill? Oh, I kind of like that one. As you can see, I obviously like the color pink today. So if I come in here and I change this phone to a 1, it's going to change the bars. So they all, you should have seen them all manipulate. If I put an 88 in here, you can see everything move. So like I said, it's live. So if you are, if you need to do a presentation, if you're working with your team, if you're talking about goals, some things like that, you can do the what if. what if by using Excel, what if we increase your bonus to 5%? Then what would you get then? Just some little things like that. So conditional formatting is a really cool tool that you can utilize. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear these rules as well. Whoops, did I not clear them? There we go. Now, when you're working with data like this, one of the things that you always want to do is to put this data in a table. All right. So I'm going to move from the home ribbon over here to the insert ribbon. And in the insert ribbon, we're going to be looking at this table. So I have A3 selected. In order to insert a table, you simply need to have one cell selected in the data array. And by data array, I mean anywhere from A1 to A51 to H51. Okay, so any one of those cells, and it will insert the table for you automatically. This is what's going to happen. You're going to go to table, and I know this little tiny window appears, and it says, where's the data that you want for your table? And it has $A, $1, colon, $H, $52, which is our table array. So it automatically put in the absolute reference for us. And it also has a check mark in my table has headers. Now you want to make sure that you leave that check mark in there, because what they mean by headers is what I was calling fields earlier, with the first name, last name, order date, region, product, quantity, price, etc. So all of those are in there for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on OK. And what it does is it brings up something called table design. So now we have a table design ribbon. It defaults to this blue. If you don't like the blue color, you can change it to orange or green or purple, or whatever it is that maybe you prefer. There's all kinds of different options here. It just depends on your taste, what you want, how you want your table to look. We'll go with the blue. Okay. Now, you can look at this, change that whenever you want to. Right now, I want to focus our attention over here on the table name, because it's important that you rename your table, especially if you're going to, within your workbook, if you're going to have multiple tables, it's important that you have very specific names, or if you're going to share this out with other people, if you have a very specific table name, then you'll know what you're looking for. Okay, so I'm just going to call this sales data. Oops, I must have my caps lock on. Now, when you're putting in the name, one thing to remember is that a table name may not have a space in it. If you put a space in it, Excel is going to yell at you. It's going to do that ding, and it's just going to put this back to table 1. It's going to rename it right back to table 1. So you can run the whole name together, whether you want to use sales data or whatever you prefer, sales data, or you can put an underscore in. I use underscore a lot. Whoops, I already have sales in there. Let's try data. So I'm just going to put in sales data. I hit the enter key and I have named my table. Now, if you know that you're probably familiar with the name box. In the name box, if I click on the down arrow, now I not only see the cell that I'm in. Let me move outside of this table for a second. You'll note that when I moved outside of the table, my table design ribbon is gone because I'm not inside of the table. So it says, okay, you've moved on. You're not working on the table anymore. So you don't need this ribbon right now. So right now I'm in I2, but if I come over to my name box, that table is still going to be listed there. And if you have never inserted a table before, I always urge people to go to the name box and make sure that your table is listed before you move on. Just a little bit of a security check to ensure that you have inserted the table correctly. So I'm going to highlight sales data, and it highlights my data for me. So it selects it. So if we had other tables on maybe other worksheets and we went to the name box and we selected that table, it would move from worksheet ABC to worksheet XYZ, wherever the table is. So they'll all be listed here. It's the tables in the workbook, not in the worksheet, just as an FYI. Okay, so now I'm back in my table. So look, I got my table design ribbon back. Some other interesting features about the table. I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller. I'm going to come down to the bottom. Well, you know what? Before I move down to the bottom, one of the little features that I want to share with you is as I'm moving down. Well, now I can't see my row 1. So as I'm moving down, oh, I can see row 1. Okay, I didn't notice that earlier. I wanted to make sure that row 1 had. I don't think that's doing it though. Let me just go to data and show you what I was going to look at. No, I'm sorry, view. I'm going to freeze the pane. So I'm going to freeze this top row. That way, when I scroll down, I didn't think they were frozen. That way, when I scroll down, I can always see these fields. And with this data, it's pretty easy to determine, which one is product, which one is the date. But it's just a lot easier. What I want to look at on the table design is underneath the table design options. If I put in a total row, it will give me a total row. So I've got my total row right here at the bottom. And I can go ahead and I can just go ahead and run back to the home ribbon. And I'm just going to do an auto sum, and it will auto sum those for me. So just makes it look a little bit more professional. So I've sold 350 items to the tune of $40,755.38. Okay. So some other things that you can do with this particular data, because of the way that we have it organized, and going back to the organization, and this is one that I see a lot. I'm not sure why, but organizations will bring data to me, and they may have all of their customers, so to speak, and in their Excel worksheet, they might have where they've worked. Okay, so a job history, but in that they put everything in one cell. Again, you can't split that out because everything's going to be different. If you've got 50 people in there and you put every job that they've worked at, regardless of what that is, showed you how to split columns out, but those characters are not going to be the same for every person. So the only way that you can do that is to create a job 1, job 2, job 3, or if they're fluent in more than one language, then they put it all in one cell. Make sure that you're splitting all of that out so you can use things like this. Things like the filter. Like the sort, if you're looking for how many people speak Spanish, Boom, there you have it. How many people speak French? Boom, there you have it. So just some little things like that that may not seem important at the time, but when you're looking for that data, you're doing maybe a monthly report or a quarterly report, a year-end report. If you can get that data just like this, it makes it so much easier. Okay, so we have inserted our table. Now, if I come down here and I put in another customer, so I'm just going to put in here. It did automatically. Okay, so now if I need another person, if I want to add to this, if I go in and I insert a row, it will. If I start to type, it automatically is adding this into my table, I guess is my point. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this down. Oops. So as you add people, it's automatically going to add to your table is my point. The color scheme that I had might have made it look a little bit difficult to look at. Okay, so now I'm going to move back to insert and I'm going to go to pivot table. If you haven't used a pivot table before, a pivot table allows you to analyze data very quickly. It has built-in calculations for you if you would like to utilize those, or you can build your own calculations fairly simply as well. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to say insert pivot table. It says, okay, the table arranges my sales data. So I'm going to click on OK. It inserts another worksheet. So it gives me sheet 2. I'm just going to move this over here on the other side because that kind of bothers me. I want my data first and then my pivot table. So when I insert the pivot table, now you're going to see that I have 2 more ribbons: pivot table, analyze, and design. On the pivot table, what you're looking at over here on the left, this is your work area. So this is where the data that you select is going to be represented. Over on the right, you have your different fields. Now, there's no coincidence that the fields, last name, first name, order date, region, product, quantity, unit price, and total are all here because they came directly from our data, our sales data. So I'm just going to go back over here and run over to this. Then down below that, you have the ability to go to one of these four, what I call quadrants. You've got filters, you have columns, you have rows, and you have values. Now, if I just come up and I put a check mark in one of them, it's automatically going to say, okay, I think this is where this should go, right? So I can just, click a last name, and it gives me all of my last names. It put all of my last names in a row. If for some reason that's not what you want, you can move it up to columns. Typically, I do not do that. It just kind of depends on what I'm looking at, but we're going to drag and drop it right back down here to rows. So let's look at this, and maybe we want to know the total. We want to know the total that each one of these customers purchased. So when I put a check mark in total, it's just going to give me the sum of the total in values. So it automatically gives me the sum of values. Now, the beauty of this is I can go in and change this if I want to. Remember, I said that there's several different calculations, and every version of Excel will vary on how many calculations are in there. It's going to be anywhere between 9. The most I've seen is 12. That doesn't mean that there's not more out there. And those are the ones that automatically come with Microsoft Excel, not the ones that maybe you have developed yourself or somebody else has developed. But it defaults to sum of total. Now, the nice thing about the values is that I can drag this down multiple times, because then I can go in and I can say, okay, I want the sum of total, but I'm going to go to value field settings. But I also want to look at the average, maybe the average, the max, the min, the count, whatever you're looking for. So these are the different calculations that are in there. Product, count numbers, standard deviation P, variance P. In this version does not have as many as another device that I am not using right now. So the custom name is sum of total, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to rename this to customer sales. And you may have noted that the sum of total does not have a currency format to it. So I'm going to click on number format. I'm just going to click on currency. We don't really need any decimals. We'll just have it round up or down. Click on OK, and click on OK, and it gives us our customer sales. Let me increase this a little bit for you so you can see it a little bit easier. So it gives us all of our customer sales. Now, I want to know how many items did each one of these folks buy. So I'm going to take quantity. I'm going to drag this down here. Now, it's giving me the sum of quantity, which we can change that if we want to, but that's going to be the same thing, ironically. Maybe I just want to count. So I want a sales count. Number format's good. Going to click on OK. And did anybody have more than one? Okay, somebody did. More had more than one sale, and there were 52,000 or 52 individual sales to the tune of $214,753. All right, so if I go back in, let's say that I go back over here, and I'm going to insert a row. And I'm just going to take Kathy Adams. Drag this part down. And maybe bought a phone. Needed 88 phones. What's the unit price for a phone? I don't know. I think it was like 313.55. And then we need a total. Oops. Sometimes my mouse works a little bit funny in Zoom. There we go. Okay, now the one thing that you have to remember about a pivot table is that when I come back over, you're not going to see any updates, which you would expect, right? When you're in Microsoft Excel and you are updating things, the worksheets talk to one another. In this case, the one worksheet is static and the other is not static, and that's the term that they use. So the pivot table is not static. So you would expect that customer sales would have increased for Adams and that the sales count would be 2. But we need to do one more thing, and this is important to remember if you're working with a pivot table. We need to refresh the data. So if I come in and click on refresh data, now it put me almost to $6,000 in customer sales and a sales count of 2. So anytime that you go in and you update data in your table, you need to make sure that you click on refresh. Now, why is it so important that we put that table in? Because if we hadn't put the table in, we would have also had to have gone back in and changed the data source. But because when we put another line in for Kathleen Adams, it just moved our table down to row 55, it looks like. But it did that automatically. If you don't put your data in a table, you're going to have to do both. You're going to have to update the range, and you're going to have to go in and tell it that you want it to refresh. In this case, since we have the table, we don't have to do that. We can tell it that we want it. We can tell it that we want it to just to refresh. Okay. So if you're looking at this and you're saying, you know what, I don't care about the sales count, I'm going to take that out. So I can click on the down arrow and I can remove this field. Now, if you remove this field, we did a couple of things to it, right? It's gone. So if you want this back, you're going to have to go through those steps again, just as an FYI. So I'm going to remove the field and we're back to just the customer sales. Now, it might be kind of interesting if we put product in columns just to see what happens here. So now we're looking at each one, and we have each item. We can see that across the top. What is that blank one? Get rid of that. No. Okay, we'll leave it there. So across the top are the items that we're selling: the keyboard, the laptop, the monitor, the phone, and the tablet. And then down the side, we have all of our salespeople or customers. So we can take that out. Just wanted to show you that. We can also put in the order date. So if I put a check mark in order date, it's going to give me the sales. I can collapse these if I want to, expand or collapse those. It'll give me the date for every single one of them. So this is for Adams. Now, when you're looking at this, and this is kind of a table type thing, you'll note that a couple of different things. First of all, it gives you the days and it also gives you the months. So if you want to, I can take the days out of there and it will just give me the months. Why didn't it go to just months? Oh, there it is. Okay. So it did separate that out. Sometimes it will do it in days, quarters, months, years. It depends on how you formatted your date. Okay. But what I was really going to point out is, I'm going to put this back in there so we've got a little bit more data to look at. Your mind, at least mine does anyway, if I'm looking at atoms, it wants to come down to the lower right and look at that. Okay, the total for the total customer sales for atoms is 7130. In a pivot table, it moves right across. So it gives atoms in the total, and then the two sales dates in April. All right. So make sure that when you're looking at that, that you are looking straight across and not doing the angle thing down to the lower right-hand corner that we typically would think of when we're doing that. Okay, so some other things, we don't have to do last name. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to take the check marks out of all these. We definitely don't have to look at the individual customers. Maybe we want to look at the regions. So let's look at the regions and see, what's the total for each region, and it will automatically give me those sums. Okay, now that's pretty quick, right? If you were to come over here to sheet 1 and maybe say that you wanted to look at these, come here, from A to Z, and because I'm in a table, it didn't ask me, it knows that everything needs to move. You could come in and then you could, do an insert a row and do a subtotal, but why? The pivot table will do it for you just like that. I'll never forget the first time that I learned about a pivot table. I was at work and a gentleman called me and he said, "Would you mind coming up to my office? I have a question about a pivot table." Sure, I'll be right up. I'd never seen a pivot table before. I got up to his office. I got lucky. I clicked on a couple of things and it worked. I'm walking back to my office and I'm thinking, wait a second. I have all these reports that I do where I would have to put in those subtotals. And I mean, not just a couple of subtotals, but hundreds of subtotals. And what I was doing there, I was like, wait a second, if I put those into a pivot table and do click, click, it's just going to give me the data. So, it's those real life experiences where you go, wow, work smarter, not harder, right? So there's just lots of different things that you can do. That is your pivot table. I want to show you one more thing. And not all versions of Excel have this, but look at this. I have GPT, or no, I have analyzed data. That's what I was looking for. I don't want GPT. I want analyzed data. What this is this is AI driven, and it goes in and it analyzes your data and it says, okay, this is what I think is interesting about your data. So it's giving us a pivot table. It gave us a pivot chart. It's giving us East has noticeably higher quantity. It's telling us that the product phone and laptop have noticeably higher quantities. And it's got 35 other results. So you can go through here and you can, kind of look at this and say, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And I didn't even have to look at the data. It just pulled that out for me. So here are the interesting things. First name Kathleen has noticeably higher quantities. Just little things like that. When you're going in and looking at data, having AI analyze it, or you can come up here and you can ask it a question if you want to, and the analyzed data will go in and do that for you automatically. Okay. I just want to make sure there are no questions. Now, keep in mind, today's Lunch and Learn was all about organizing your data and being able to perform some of these higher end functions. If your data is not organized correctly, you're not going to be able to. Maybe you're saying, well, but I don't even know how to use some of these things. That's fine. Still think about how you're organizing your data and organize it in a manner that as you learn more and more about Microsoft Excel, that you'll be able to use some of these functions with your data, because it makes such a big difference if you are looking at data that you're familiar with. that you work with on maybe a daily basis. If you're looking at personal data of your own, you kind of know what that data should look like, right? So it just makes a big difference. I know that some of you were here last week, but I do want to mention again that the DoSpace has another cohort of Accelerate that they're taking applications for. The dates for this are May 6th through June 10th, excuse me. So it is, those are Tuesdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is via Zoom. All right, so you will need to have access to a computer, preferably 2 monitors if you have 2 monitors, and Microsoft Excel. You can also go to the DoSpace physically, but Accelerate is a virtual 12 hours of free training starting on Tuesday, May 6th from 11 to 1. Okay, so that's 2 hours once a week from May 6th to June 10th. The applications are due on April 27th, and I think I have this up for, so I can show you where to find it on the website. Well, I thought I did. So if you are interested, or you have someone that you know that might be interested, maybe somebody that's even, I've had students that are homeschooled, that parents have signed them up. That's just fine. That is not a problem. So if you go to the DoSpace website I'm just going to back up here. I clicked on it. Didn't mean to. Just go to DoSpace.org, click on in the upper right, upper left, click on Accelerate. It will take you to the application. So even if you've taken Accelerate before, feel free to sign up for it again. I don't always cover the same topics. Sometimes we move a little faster, sometimes we move a little slower, but feel free to share that with anyone that you would like. All right. Yes, they should be on the YouTube channel. I have covered Power Pivot in the past, Aaron. I can certainly put that on a list of items. I don't know if I have anything coming up, but yes, absolutely. So as always, folks, a big shout out to the DoSpace for all the wonderful programs that they offer the greater Omaha area. Trying to get back to my title slide here. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at jdospace@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Have a great weekend and happy Easter, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. If I have a specific question, I watched your last YouTube training, but it kind of went over the formatting and filling, auto filling, auto adjusting the height
Sure.
and stuff. So I actually have been having problems trying to create that on my own. I've had worksheets in the past and this is like a communication worksheet, right? We created it with dates and time, names of who we speak to for like a call log. And when whoever originally created it, the comment section, when you typed in the communication you had with the person you spoke with, it auto adjusted the height of the row to see the communication, all the words you put in there. I know you can double click on that line and you can see what is not seen, but I cannot get the ones that I'm trying to create to do that function, to auto adjust the height so that you can physically see all the words in that area.
Is that is that something that you can share with me, or is it, that
I could,
native?
let me see. I could share it because I don't have any. Well, I could share it because I could bring up a blank one and show you that I, for some reason, can't create it.
Yeah, if you could email that to me so I could take a look at it, I'd be happy to look at it for you.
Okay, yeah, because I've tried doing the format and hitting the auto fit row height, but it's not helping or doing the
Okay.
function.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Christine, feel free to email it to me.
Okay, thank you so much and have
You're
a great
welcome.
holiday weekend.
Yep, you too, thanks.
Thanks.